Hello and welcome to my channel. My name's Lyndon. Thank you so much for coming. In this video, I want to share with you the one thing which I perceive is the absolute truth about your saxophone playing, which could possibly be holding you back. And if you change this, then everything will get so much easier and so much more straightforward for you. I think it's really, really important, and I feel really passionate about it because I really want to help you. I want to help as many people as I can get fabulous at playing the saxophone and enjoy it more and make it more straightforward and make it easy and unlock the mysteries of saxophone playing. Now, where this is coming from is years and years and years, over 20 years now, of teaching. And I've taught young people and old people, super wealthy people, just people with regular jobs, men, women, all kinds of people. But there's one thing that if they do this, then they progress forward and they get really, really good on the saxophone. And if they're not able to do this, then they don't. What is this one thing? Can you guess what I'm going to say? It's the 12 major scales. If you have your 12 major scales down, it doesn't make things slightly easier. It makes things 100 times easier, infinitely easier to do anything on the saxophone. And I want to explain to you why that is and how you can go about changing this. Now look, if you don't have your 12 major scales down, that doesn't make you mad, bad or sad. You can still have fun playing the saxophone. You can still sound fabulous, but there are going to be territories, musical territories and things that you just, territories that you're not able to enter, and there'll be things that you won't be able to do. Whereas if you do have your major scales down, you may not be the most fabulous saxophone player in the world, but if you do the basics really, really well, you'll be absolutely fine, and you'll be fine in virtually all musical situations. You absolutely will. So if this is the case, then why don't people learn their major scales? In my opinion, there's a whole bunch of reasons why this is the case. And I think the number one reason is that people perceive major scales as boring or dull or pointless. And if you feel that way about major scales, it's probably not your fault. It comes from a culture of teaching where people have to learn major scales in order to pass some exam. As soon as they've passed the exam, they delete all of the information because the whole point of learning the major scales was to pass the exam. And once you pass the exam, you don't use it anymore, right? Well, that's unfortunately seems to be the case. And my approach to teaching is that major scales are the most beautiful, wonderful, gorgeous things that we can use all the time. We can play melodies with them, we can improvise with them, we can have so much fun playing major scales. So this is part of the problem, that you're just learning these structures for no other reason other than to please a teacher, satisfy the school, pass a grade, something like this. And this is why I think that my teaching style has been well received by all of my private clients and by you lovely YouTube world, is because we're taking these boring structures, they're not boring, and we're turning them into something beautiful. Now, if you're able to do this, then your brain goes, oh, is that what you're using them for? Oh, I didn't realize. Okay, let's do it. Let's keep them at the top of our mind all of the time. I want you to imagine a set of doormen, two doormen standing by a threshold that you'd like to go in, like a nightclub or something. There's two doormen standing there. And you know, like doormen or bouncers, that we call them bouncers in the UK, or doormen, and they won't let you in if you're not wearing the right shoes. And it doesn't matter what you say to them. And they say, no, go home and change your shoes and you can come in. And you say, no, but these are shoes. Honestly, they're kind of, well, I know they're sort of like trainers, but they are. No, you can't come in. You cannot cross this threshold unless you have the correct attire. And music is just like that. There'll be a point that you will reach that you cannot go beyond if you don't have your scales. So I want you to imagine that there's two musical doormen and they say to you, You want to come through? Okay. How many flats in E flat major? And you go, oh, wait a minute, I know this. Hang on a sec. Is it 3? Is it 4? Is it 6? Is it 2 sharp? And they go, no, go home. Right. Only when you can answer that question instantly and accurately will they let you through. And they might do that for 4 or 5 different scales. That's the level that you need to be at. You need to know that all of the scales, which sharps and flats they have, and you need to be able to play them by ear. And if you can do that, then these metaphorical doormen will let you in the next territory. Now, why? Why do you want to enter that territory? Well, here's the thing. The major scales have loads of derivatives. So, for instance, if you'd like to be able to play F minor, Dorian, then that would be super helpful if you know E flat major, because the second mode of E flat major is F minor. And lots of pop tunes, when I go and do a gig with my wife, or I was doing a gig the other day, there's loads of F minor there. And if you're comfortable with F minor and improvising in F minor, or just even, when I say improvising, just running up and down the scale, you don't need to do a lot more than that, then that makes it super easy. And if you don't know those notes, then you're all over the place and you can't play. So the major scales have these derivatives. The second mode is really significant. The fifth mode, Mixolydians, is really massively significant. The sixth mode, which is the relative minor or the Aeolian mode, is massively significant. So there's all of these derivatives or modes that come off a major scale that if you don't know the home scale, the major scale itself, you can't possibly know all of these derivatives. So you'd be trucking along in a musical situation, there'd be a key change and all of a sudden you're stuck. The doormen say, no, sorry, you can't come in. You can't play in this territory because you don't know what the notes are. So how do you go about doing this? How can you change? The first thing to do is to have a stock check or an inventory or an audit of all the scales that you know and all the scales that you don't know. You could categorize them. Scales that I feel comfortable about that I could play by ear. Scales that I feel mostly okay with, but I might make a mistake here or there. Scales that, to be honest, the 12 major scales, these ones, I really need to work on because I don't know. By the way, if you don't know your scales, it doesn't make you mad, bad or sad. It's not a reflection on you as a human being, but it's absolutely something which is going to hold you back in the musical world. So once you've categorized which scales that you know really well, kind of well, and not at all, then you can start to focus on the ones that you feel the weakest at. And by the way, once you've learned all of your 12 major scales, it doesn't stop there. You need to refresh them and play them and practice them on a regular basis to keep them up to date, because your brain won't store information that you're using at the front of your mind. It will store it in storage at the back of your mind somewhere. It will still be there, but it will have to go searching for it, and there'll be that hesitation and that searching process before it will bring that information to the front of your mind. So you need to play them on a regular basis to keep musically fit, if you like. But of course, you won't keep musically fit if you don't understand the significance of the major scales. You just won't, because there'll be no point to it, and your brain likes things which are functional. It's the one thing that you can do that if you don't already have your major scales down, this is what you really need to focus on. Please, please, please hear my message and trust me, learn your major scales, learn your major scales, learn your major scales. It's mind-bogglingly important. Now, maybe you're sitting there thinking, yeah, well, Lyndon, do you know what? I can play all of my major scales by ear, and I can do that. So, you know, this doesn't really apply to me. In that case, what I would say to you is, can you play all of your major scales descending? Because we normally practice our scales going ba do dee do dee da da da, and only when we've done that do we go ba da da dee a do dee da. And so your brain links the descending form to the ascending form. So can you go ba da dee da dee da da da, and then in a different key ba da dee da ba do da, without ascending first? Do you see what I mean? So that's one thing that you could do, playing them in a different order. So I always used to practice my scales chromatically, and then one day I thought I should probably change the order after about 4 years of doing it chromatically. When I tried to do it around the cycle, going from C to G to D to A to E and going around the cycle clockwise, I tripped up all over the place, and I couldn't understand what this was about. It's because my brain had linked doing certain scales in a certain order, and if you change the order, it not exactly falls apart, but it becomes more tricky, and your brain's going, why are we doing it like this? And it kind of argues. Brain's such a funny thing. Another thing that we can do is to hit the root, the third, the fifth, the seventh and the ninth of all of the major scales. If you can do that, then when it comes to improvise, you don't need to do a lot more than that to sound fabulous. Being able to hit, in the case of C major, C, E, G, B and D, being able to hit that reliably, accurately, consistently is a really, really, really good thing that you can practice. And then you could practice hitting those chord tones in different orders, or can you descend them? It's just so phenomenally important. Now, I know I'm ranting, I know I am, but the reason is I'm kind of evangelical about major scales, and you know, the part of the reason is that I've been playing the saxophone now for a really, really long time, since I was 26, and I'm 28 now, so I'm 58, so like 30 years. I can't even believe I've been playing the saxophone for that long. But I know that I've been playing about 5 years, and I was playing in bands and I was really enjoying it, but my playing, I just kept hitting these territories. I just kept running into doormen that wouldn't let me pass, and I couldn't figure out why. Then when I looked at my playing, I realized that I didn't have my major scales down, and I felt really bad about myself. I thought, I've been playing for years and I don't know my major scales. How embarrassing is that? I really should get them down. So I really started to nail the scales that I didn't feel comfortable with, and everything changed dramatically. It was like the heavens opened, the light switched on, everything changed from that point. And I want that for you. I really do. I want that for you. I want that for everybody that plays the sax. And that's why I'm ranting on about major scales, because they're so mind-bogglingly significant. When somebody comes round to my house and for a lesson, and I have a chat with them, make them a cup of tea, and then I say, what have you been working on the sax? They say, oh, I've heard this fabulous tune, I really like it. Can we have a listen? So we have a listen on YouTube, and I start playing the tune immediately. Even if I've never heard it before, I'm able to more or less, maybe not exactly, but more or less play the tune immediately. And my client is like, what kind of dark wizardry is this? What kind of dark magic is that, where you're able to do that? It's just because I know the scales. It is just because I know the scales. And because melodies are built of scales. Oh, I'm going to melt down in a minute. They so are. Melodies are built of scales. So if you know the scale, you'll be okay. And if you don't know the scale, then good luck with trying to play a melody that's in that particular key, because you're going to find it super, super hard. So do your inventory, work out what scales that you need to work on, and hammer those home. It's just repetition. You need to repeat it over and over and over and over and over again. And I can see why people find them boring, because there is a hell of a lot of repetition involved in getting your scales down. There really is. But trust me, it's worth the investment of your time. Right? Please, 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 just trust me and learn your major scales. One last thing, if you want to approach chord charts, then if you know your major scales, then you can understand a 2-5-1 in the key of C major, because it's just like C major, but starting on the second mode, then the fifth mode, and then the first mode, which is quite easy to get your head around if you have that home key down, the C major. I can get anybody that knows the scale to play through a 2-5-1 pretty much straight away. And then imagine you can do that in all keys. So if you know your major scales, you've got a good chance at being able to navigate your way through chord charts. If you don't know your major scales, good luck with that. No chance. You really, really, really need to know your major scales. Right, I'm going to go. I need to say my thank yous. Thank you so much, YouTube. Thank you for your lovely comments, your lovely feedback. It's been life-changing, in all honesty. I've really enjoyed making all of these tutorials. I'm going to try and make another 100 videos in the next 6 months if I possibly can. And you can help me by supporting the channel, by subscribing, by putting out really good suggestions, by sharing my videos. That's massively, massively helpful to me. And by making suggestions about things that you'd like to hear. I'm going to do another practice with me video right now on harmonic minors, which are one of my favorite things to play. Harmonic minors, absolutely love them. I'm also on the verge of launching a membership only website, and guess what's the first thing that I do in there? A really deep dive into major scales, because I absolutely know from the bottom of my heart it's the right way to go. Right, I'm getting out of here. I've got things to do. I'm sure you have too. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Okay, take care. Bye-bye.